Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, an emergency meeting in Hillcrest to address safety concerns. We're live from the town hall 1 week after a man shot into a restaurant with customers and workers inside.
Drug use, drug dealing, violence, theft, and even prostitution.
It's the park next to a home for seniors, but neighbors say it's also a hotbed for crime. Meet the tenants who want the city to do something about it.
Everybody felt it. Like you have two innocent women that were just coming from church, that had nothing to do with anything.
An in-depth look into how one violent night changed a local community and placed a focus on gang violence in San Diego. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. The San Diego County Sheriff's Department releases records of its deputies accused of sexual assault. It's in compliance with a new state law that's been in effect since the start of this year. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tragesser explains what the reports reveal.
KPBS requested records of all local law enforcement agencies about officers who committed sexual assault, lied when reporting a crime or in an investigation, or used force that caused a person serious harm or death. The Sheriff's Department initially said it would cost more than $350,000 to publish the records, but Sheriff Bill Gore changed his mind and said the department would provide the records for free. So the department is now beginning to release its records by publishing them online. The first two reports published deal with deputies accused of groping women. Neither deputy still works for the department. In one case, Deputy Timothy Wilson Jr. groped a teenage girl while standing behind her at a Vista Panda Express restaurant. He resigned from the department and then pleaded guilty to the crime and was sentenced to a year in prison. The second case says Deputy Juan Andrade allegedly groped a homeless woman after she reported she was the victim of a sexual assault. According to the report, Andrade admitted to kissing the woman, but said it was consensual. He resigned from the department. Claire Tragesser, KPBS News.
It's been 1 week since a gunman opened fire on a restaurant in Hillcrest. No one was hurt, but the community is concerned about violence in the area. Now an emergency town hall meeting is happening tonight, and KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman is there live in Hillcrest. Matt?
Yeah, Ebony, last week the Hillcrest community was shaken when San Diego police say 29-year-old Stefano Parker fired 19 rounds into the Asian bistro not too far from where we're standing now. Here today at St. Paul's Cathedral, there's going to be a town hall meeting, an emergency town hall meeting where the San Diego mayor, San Diego police chief, and others, including the owner of the restaurant that was shot at, will all be here to discuss what happened and how they can prevent violence moving forward. Now, I'll show you some video of what that restaurant looked like when it was shot up last Tuesday. You can see broken glass. Now, the owner says there were bullet holes all over the walls. San Diego police say 19 rounds were fired into that restaurant. There were 9 people inside, but miraculously, no one was hit by gunfire. Now, we spoke to a couple people who work nearby who say Hillcrest is generally safe, and they believe the shooting was just an isolated incident.
For me, it still look nice and everything, and quiet and safely. So there's always a lot of people because there's so many restaurants. So people walking during the night and till 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Most of the restaurants, they close at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
There's more presence of police officers now. They're starting to come around every now and often, They're coming now. It's safe out here. It's safe out here. Everybody's here all night, walking up and down all night. There's no problems or anything, but that was the problem that night.
Now, this is what the restaurant looks like today, the Asian Bistro. You can see all that broken glass is cleaned up. The windows have been replaced. And the owner of the Asian Bistro tells me they had to close for a week, and they actually just reopened yesterday. She says the community has been very supportive throughout the aftermath of that shooting. Now, back out here live at St. Paul's Cathedral, there's 100 people, over 100 people expected to be here at this meeting tonight, an emergency town hall that includes San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer, San Diego Police Chief David Nesley, and others, including council member Chris Ward. Now, there's probably going to be a debate of if this was a hate crime, but as of right now, we're here live. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
And Matt, you mentioned hate crime. Do you know whether or not police are currently investigating this as a possible hate crime?
Yeah, San Diego police right now, we don't know if they're investigating it as a hate crime, but they say that it could be a possible hate crime. They don't want to call it a hate crime yet. They do say that a Facebook post from that suspect was, quote, disturbing, although they're not calling it a hate crime yet. We do know, though, that suspect, he was already arrested for a homicide in Alabama, and he's right now facing multiple counts of attempted homicide.
Thanks for that report, Matt. Drugs, prostitution, and violence are among the alleged crimes impacting an affordable living complex for seniors. KPBS reporter Taryn Mentos says the facility's staff and residents point to a nearby park as the problem, and they want to see it closed down.
The small public courtyard next to Potiker City Heights residence in Mid-City San Diego allows tenants to enjoy the outdoors. Some would sit with their dogs, sip their coffee, or enjoy a smoke break. But resident Nancy Gail Gallagher says few of her neighbors feel safe there anymore.
It's just become a party place.
She says groups of people who don't live in the area are bringing crime and drugs into the neighboring City Heights Square mini park.
Of course, there's been fights and screaming and yelling.
She says she could put up with a lot because she spent a few years homeless and encountered similar situations. But over the summer, a man high on drugs at the park made sexual comments toward her. And even she was startled.
I don't go in there and sit anymore unless it's empty.
Neither do many of the seniors at Potiker. Residents and management say the problems go further than noise, nuisance, and drugs. Now they're fighting back and asking for a park curfew of 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. They're seeking preliminary approval this week and hope it moves on to the city council for the final okay.
And they're fearful to come, use the entire park or even to enter at all.
Melinda Forsty is chief operating officer for Serving Seniors. That's the company that owns Potiker. On the day KPBS met Forsty at the park, it was empty and quiet.
It looks very clean right now.
Absolutely.
It's really quiet.
But she says problems have gone on there for a while.
Drug use, drug dealing, violence, theft, and even prostitution.
She says it's now bleeding over from the park and into the Potiker building.
A lot of our residents do come here to smoke, and when they are trying to get back into our building, sometimes they're being followed by someone from the park, and they're fearful to not let them in, so that has caused some instances to happen in our building as well.
Staff say they once found a syringe in the building's open bathrooms. Another time in there, they saw a man and a woman who was known to prostitute. They didn't call the cops those times, but now they're locking the bathroom and alerting police about ongoing problems.
So the police department, they've been as responsive as they can be. I know that they're understaffed. They were patrolling the park 1 or 2 times a day earlier.
The police department would not agree to an interview, but in an email, Mid-City Police Captain Todd Griffin said officers can only issue citations for drug use. He says a woman was arrested near the park in December after she attacked a resident and spit on a manager. Griffin says there are ways for residents to report problems. Forsty says they're using them.
And making phone calls to the police department, emailing the police department, and then also documenting it on the Get It Done app.
The next step is the curfew. Potiker is arranging vans to take seniors to a Park and Rec board meeting this week where they can make their case. And they have a lot of support from community groups. But not all of the tenants agree people in the park cause problems. One woman who didn't want to be identified said some are just homeless and need a place to rest. Even resident Gallagher says some are kind, like the man she asked for a quarter to finish her laundry.
He pulled all the change out of his pocket, and he was counting all this change to give me 25 cents, dimes and nickels, and he was going to hand me those dimes and nickels. And I apologize. I'm so sorry. I need just a quarter for the dryer.
But she agrees something needs to be done. A tenants survey found drugs, homeless move-ins, and street gangs as the top reasons residents avoid the outdoor space next door.
It's just that we can't use the park. And honestly, I really don't know what they can do about it.
Neighborhood groups say there are crime issues at 4 other Mid-City parks. The board will also hear curfew proposals for those locations. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
Just after midnight on New Year's Eve back in 2003, there was a gang shooting in San Diego's Lincoln Park neighborhood. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregasser tells us about what happened that night and the lasting impact it's had.
I will rejoice and be glad in it.
It's long been a tradition at the True Faith Missionary Baptist Church to hold a service that ends at midnight on New Year's Eve. The mostly African-American church in San Diego's Azalea Park neighborhood is small, about 50 people. Some of them gather that night for a few hours to sing, read from the Bible, thank God for the outgoing year, and pray for the year about to begin.
We all have a past. I ain't sad at my past. I ain't proud of my past. But I'm more concerned about my future, and I'm thinking about my present.
A lot of the prayers are for safety. People pray for the safety of friends and family members who are out at parties. They pray for their own safety while driving home that night.
It really was something for me to even get out here, because hearing the bullets and everything, But God is good, and I had faith that He'd bring me here safely, and I had to come in here and, like Sister Habit said, bring in the new year the right way.
Back in 2003, in the first hour of that new year, a woman named Carol Waits left this midnight service and got in the car with her friend, her 7-year-old nephew, and her 3-year-old granddaughter to drive home. On the way, they stopped to buy a fireplace log at a small liquor store called Dr. J's. While they were there, a group of gang members pulled up and started shooting. Both women were killed, and the 7-year-old was shot multiple times while he shielded the 3-year-old with his body. Remarkably, he survived.
How you doing today, man?
Just before Thanksgiving last year, Armand King was rushing around an intersection in southeast San Diego that used to be a place with a lot of gang activity. Now, there was a line of people waiting to get free turkeys. And King was giving them away. He helps run a nonprofit called Paving Great Futures that trains people in culinary programs. It's supposed to take the place of gangs.
That's why we're in existence right now at Paving Great Futures, because we can fill in that void of what was missing from our lives, so we can do that and help push this positivity that we see it happening.
King spent part of the time growing up in southeast San Diego and got involved with street life. Now he's turned his life around, and he says southeast San Diego has made changes too. 15 years after the shooting, he says people still talk about what happened that night. The crime was so perfectly horrific. 2 innocent women on their way home from church, no less. 2 kids in the back seat, caught in a senseless gang drive-by shooting, that it made people pay more attention to what was going on in southeast San Diego, a low-income and predominantly African-American pocket of the city.
Everybody felt it. Like you have two innocent women that were just coming from church, that had nothing to do with anything.
The shooting has left a lasting impact on the area in several ways. It led to the formation of nonprofits like the one King runs and other groups still doing work today. And it personally impacted lots of people, from the families of the women who were killed to the family of the man eventually charged with the murders. King says people definitely paid more attention to southeast San Diego after the shooting.
But it not necessarily looked at it in a positive light, like let's come in with resources and help them, or opportunities and help them not go down these routes. It was more of a negative, lock them animals up type atmosphere.
Tomorrow, we'll talk about how the community's relationship with police changed after the shooting at Dr. J's. Claire Tregasser, KPBS News.
For a longer version of that story and the rest of the series, subscribe to our podcast, San Diego Stories, or go to kpbs.org/J.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the Vatican prepares to open an historic summit on the Catholic Church's sexual abuse crisis. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Palomar College is getting ready to celebrate the grand opening of their new $67 million library. But there's some expensive construction going on that wasn't part of the original plan. iNews Source investigative reporter Megan Wood explains why this is controversial.
Palomar College's new 4-story library has computer labs, a tutoring center, and lots of space for students. But by this summer, the library will also have a top-floor office suite for President Joy Lynn Blake. It's costing taxpayers nearly $1 million and wasn't part of the original plan. On a tour of the library with Palomar spokeswoman Laura Gropin, she told iNewsSource the cost of Blake's office is a small part of the building's $67 million budget. She said it's also a good spot for the office.
If you have the community meeting with the president and you have the president meeting with the campus as a whole, it makes sense to have that president centrally located to the campus.
Originally, her office was going to be in the campus's old library, but now that building is vacant and there are no plans to renovate it. Blake declined several requests for an interview, but in an email to iNewsSource said the project's expense was, quote, well within reasonable construction costs. Math professor Shannon Leinhart and other faculty members have objected for months to spending school bond money to remodel a new building, just to give Blake a new office.
The point is, it's $1 million and it didn't need to be spent. There's a reason why bond money is supposed to be spent on education, because obviously you have to have administrative buildings for the administrators, but it's mostly supposed to be built for education purposes.
The presidential suite will include Blake's office, space for 2 staffers, a conference room, restroom, and combination work break area. At this Friday's library grand opening, the top floor office will remain under construction. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Megan Wood.
For more on the Palomar College story, go to inewssource.org. iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. San Diego is one step closer to approving regulations for dockless scooters and bikes. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says a proposal passed through a city council committee today.
Scooters took San Diego by storm last year and have exploded in popularity. But along with that new technology came complaints of people riding recklessly on sidewalks. Mayor Kevin Faulconer's proposal would require companies to automatically slow speeds in certain high pedestrian zones and would require scooter sharing companies to notify users about traffic laws. Councilman Chris Ward says that's a start.
And I believe that the pathway forward is possible. I also believe that the mayor's regulations as presented today, they don't go far enough, but they are the foundation from which we are starting to check off some of the things that are necessary, because today we got nothing.
Now, it's already illegal to ride scooters on sidewalks, but a stretched police force has struggled with adequate enforcement. Council members said revenue from new fees on scooters should go toward fixing that problem. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
San Diego County gets some blistering criticism in a new review of the region's climate action plans. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson explains why.
The Climate Action Campaign's 3rd annual Climate Action Plan report card didn't award a gold medal to any of the county's municipalities. The city of San Diego, Encinitas, and Solana Beach got the highest marks, or silver medals, as reviewers evaluated the plans and how they're being implemented. Malika Marston says 4 more communities got positive marks in the bronze category.
Cities are making big promises, but they're really struggling to fulfill those promises. We're seeing limited staff resources and insufficient funding. So that is why we are proposing something bigger. We need a big, bold region that aligns efforts and maximizes resources.
8 municipalities are updating or developing plans. National Cities Plan was called out for needing improvement. Poway was criticized for failing to commit to developing a plan. But the harshest criticism was served out to the County of San Diego. The report called the county's strategy reckless, based on sprawl, and pay-to-pollute schemes. The latest county version was rejected by the courts late last year. Maria Mohammed says San Diego needs a regional version of the proposed national New Green Deal.
We have a long way to go to implement all the strategies needed to meet the local, state, climate targets in many of our communities. That means workforce opportunity, a way to put food on the table and be a part of the solution to the biggest crisis facing us all, which is climate change.
This park in City Heights is a view of what's possible. It sits over a major freeway, and there are mass transit connections right here, high-speed connections to downtown and the border. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
More rain has arrived in San Diego, and a winter weather storm warning is in effect until early Friday morning. Meteorologist Melissa Constanzer has our forecast for the rest of the week.
Good evening. We are watching the moisture. Another storm system on its way in, pulling to the south here as it moves through California. We're talking more clouds, more rain showers, and even some mountain snow showers. For us in the metro tonight, it's a couple rain showers out there, 48 for that low. A lot of those showers will be early on, but we'll get belts of moisture here through the next couple of hours. So as we head through the overnight hours, Ramona, 41 for your low. Notice San Diego, a couple stray showers possible, and that's scattered elsewhere, a little bit more so, I think, through the mountains and the higher elevations. Chula Vista coming down to the upper 40s as well overnight. As we push then into your Thursday, this whole storm system will start to swing off towards the east. So it dives south first, bringing the cool air in behind it, and then it moves off towards the east. All the while, we get some wet weather. And the good news is there's not too many concerns here. We'll have to watch for some spotty showers creating some issues in certain spots, but it'll be the mountain snow off to our northern areas that will create problems there. That's why there's winter weather advisories. So what could we see as we head into tomorrow? Well, certainly a few scattered showers in certain places. Escondido coming in at 53 for your high. San Diego itself holding on to 58 for tomorrow. Again, those showers kind of present. Futurecast the next couple of hours here. We started off overnight into early tomorrow morning. Here's the moisture in place, some of those scattered showers. This isn't really the wet activity, but there will be showers around for the drive into work. Then heading into the afternoon, after lunch, here we go. More green here on the map, and also some blue for some of those mountain snow showers here. So it gets a little bit wetter into the afternoon and early evening hours, but by Friday morning, we're starting to see most of the moisture pull out. Not all of it, but most of it. So what do we end up with here? Well, as we go through the next few days heading into the weekend, some spots through the mountains, especially above 4,000 feet, that's where we start to see the snow, and 6 to 12 inches are possible. For the coast, though, it's just those showers as we head into tomorrow. A couple showers at times. Keep the rain gear handy, 55 for that high. Then more sunshine breaking out by Friday. Inland, though, we'll see some of those showers sticking around early Friday morning. Then we're quieter heading into Saturday and Sunday when we're back into the 60s. Your mountain forecast showing we've got some mountain moisture Friday morning, but Saturday and Sunday looking good. And then as we go in through the desert, drier times for the weekend. For KPBS, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer. Back to you.
Many Americans may not know his name, but his photograph is one of the most famous snapshots in U.S. history. George Mendonza died this week in Rhode Island. A towering statue of this moment celebrating the end of World War II stands next to the USS Midway in San Diego. KPBS talked with visitors about the image and what it means to them.
Apparently, from the story I heard in Times Square, basically it was grab somebody and kiss them. I don't know if that's exactly how it happened.
So you have the ultimate war machine here, designed to destroy and do amazing acts of damage, and then you have this image symbolizing the end of the war, the joy, the peace, this spontaneous moment.
I think it's lovely and it should always be kept there because it's a great symbol for architecture.
Well, at the end of the day, wars are fought and sacrifices are made by individuals, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. And I think this photo that became the statue became so iconic because it really captures the glee of those young men and women who served for 4 years and who sacrificed for 4 years. Tour buses drop by every single day, and people come out, strike that pose you and I know, to have their photos taken. It's something that relates, I think, to the fact that World War II was fought by young people. Whether you're from Japan or Europe or Spain or wherever it might be, it really speaks, I think, to a lot of people when it comes to those who serve our country in uniform.
Just the happiness that the war was over and all the things that came along with the jubilation of not only a victory but kind of what's ahead of us. My grandpa served. He's a major in the Army, and he took part in the Battle of the Bulge. So, yeah, it's kind of hit close to home.
I think of all of the sacrifice that the sailors and soldiers and Marines went through during World War II.
You know, with 16 million Americans who served in World War II, less than 500,000 remain, and we're losing nearly 400 every day. So it really is critical that we preserve their legacy.
The Embracing Peace statue was paid for by community donations. The USS Midway Museum partners with local World War II veterans to tell their stories to visitors. Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, counting down to the Oscars. We'll hear from the composer who helps bring the music of Best Picture nominee Green Book to life. And on Midday Edition, downtown at sundown, a new art exhibit explores mass surveillance and data collection tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.